This is Ancap Su, and now we're going to talk about the 22 million raised property in the United States that Barroso bought in cash, my friend. Cash. One bill stacked on top of another, man. 22 million raised? That's not a small amount of money, man. It's a beautiful property, man, that he bought and is about to lose, right? Because, even if he gives up, if he resigns, right, this Magnitsky process can still go on. If this isn't effective in putting an end to, in ending this process and Bolsonaro ends up free to run in 2026, Barroso will certainly face sanctions under the Magnitsky Act, right? Let's understand this case here because this story is really funny. There are people saying the situation is much worse, right? And I agree, it is much worse. These people end up making a lot of money, right? They hide their assets very, very easily. It's a tip for all of us because let me tell you something. Take this tip for yourself too. Do you know what Barroso did? He set up an offshore company in the Caribbean to put all the assets in his children's names. Man, that's the best solution. That's it. Great news. Thanks, Barroso, for the tip. This news was suggested by Almirante do Porta-Aviões do Paranoá, Filet de Saint Peter, ao Monitor Guinieve, and several other people. Thanks to everyone who suggested news on our website, visãolibertaria.com, and thank you for watching our video. If you like our content, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, okay? So the news came out on Pleno News that Barroso paid for the $22 million property in the United States in cash. Look at how impressive that is, right? Isn't that impressive? Barroso, as you know, is one of those most afraid of the Magnitsky Law because he has the most to lose. This property, which is actually the one his son lives in over there in Miami, is supposedly under the name of an offshore company. What is an offshore? It's a company outside Brazil, outside your own country, right? If you live in Brazil, it would be a company outside Brazil, an offshore. This is very common because, for example, there are inheritance taxes. Here in Brazil, there is an inheritance tax, the ITCMD. So if you leave an apartment to your children will have to pay a lot of money to get that apartment. So what's the solution people come up with? You set up an offshore company with your children, so it's a joint company between you and your children abroad. And in countries that don't have inheritance tax, there are several Caribbean islands that don't have this. And then you put the following clause in your company's bylaws. If one of the partners dies, the others inherit the share of the deceased partner. Did you get it? You're the father, you're the oldest, so naturally you're the one who's going to die first. So when you die, the company goes to your children's names. And that's it, there's no inheritance. No one inherited anything in this case. It's a company that was created, like an ANCAP would do. Thanks, Barroso, for the ANCAP tip you gave, right? So that's what people do. There are several jurisdictions where this is perfectly reasonable, possible to do, and everyone does it. Then here in Brazil or over in the United States, you buy things in the name of that company, right? So the company, the holding company, right, is based in the Bahamas or St. Kitts and Nevis. Anyway, there are several islands that do this kind of thing. Then you create a company here in Brazil, which is owned by that company, and the company here in Brazil buys the apartments. So you live in an apartment that isn't yours, is the company's, which in reality you own along with your children, and then they can later include others, the grandchildren, for example. So in other words, there is never actually an inheritance. The idea is to avoid inheritance, right? These people, man, that's what I tell you. The rich don't pay taxes, man. This idea. Lula keeps saying, no, because we have to tax the richest and all that. That's not how it works, man. Whoever has money has power, man. Money is power. These guys cut that off. There's no such thing as the government taxing the rich. The government says it's going to tax the rich, but the ones who end up paying are the poor and the middle class who don't have the money to hire a lawyer to do these things for them, right? So Barroso did that, set up a company in the Cayman Islands. I don't even know where that island is, right? Then later, from that, he set up an offshore company in Florida called Telube, Florida LLC, which is named using the family's initials, and bought this mansion, this apartment for $4.1 million, which is about 22 million raised, right? It's a pretty decent apartment, man. You could have a barbecue there. Here are some pictures of the apartment. Take a look. Yeah, luxury condo with a pool in Florida, right? Look at this. It's a nice apartment. Here it is. Yeah, it was sold by Consultacio Key Biscayne LLC to Telube Florida LLC. Anyway, that's the story, right? That's the beauty of it. All right, I don't see anything wrong with that. Yeah, Barroso confirmed as an ANCAP. That's it. Congratulations, Barroso. Well done. That's it. Just like that. Tax is theft. Don't pay that crap. So yeah, Barroso did this. Now, so what are people saying? Look at this funny thing in this story, right? No way. Because look at this. But he was already rich with this right here. The 22 million property was bought in cash in 2013, before he became a Supreme Court justice. See, you fools? Are you accusing Barroso of doing something wrong? He bought it before. He was a successful lawyer and all that. But then you might ask the following question. Hey, my friend, if you're such a successful lawyer, making so much money, doing so well in life, what made you accept being a Supreme Court justice earning $40,000 a month? That's what I keep telling you. Is $40,000 a month a good salary? Or $50,000 a month? I don't know, something like that, right? Is that a good salary here in Brazil? It's a good yeah, it's an excellent salary here in Brazil. How many people make 50,000 reais a month here in Brazil? Man, you can count them on your fingers, right? And how many of Lula's mistakes, right? You wouldn't need to make 9 of them in the end, right? But the truth is, it's not a salary that's going to make you a millionaire. How do these people become millionaires? With companies that are legal businesses. And in fact, he already had a company before. He was already a well-known person before. So really, there's nothing wrong with this here. The only thing that's off in this story is, what makes a guy who's already a millionaire, who has a company making a fortune, give all that up to earn $40,000 a month? Stop and think about it. It's because he's not going to make $40,000 a month. He's going to put the company in his wife's name. I don't know if in his case it was the wife or the son, right? Each person in the Supreme Court has their own scheme, right? It's either the wife or the son or the cousins or a friend. There's always something going on, right? In other words, it's because he knows that by going to the Supreme Court, he'd still be involved with the company. Not directly, since he can't own a company anymore after being appointed as a Supreme Court justice. But the company gets transferred to his wife's name, his son's, or whoever, and he keeps making money just the same. And in the end, nothing really changes. That's the real story. So stop and think about that, right? People say, oh, but it's outrageous that he paid 22 million reais in cash and so on. But he wasn't a Supreme Court justice yet. He was a lawyer. He had a successful law firm, right? A successful practice. No, good for him, right? No one doubts that. Barroso, I studied in law school. I studied with Barroso's books. So, yeah, good for him. But in the end, why did this guy give up all that fortune to become a Supreme Court justice and make $50,000 a month? Which, again, for me, for you, for any regular Brazilian, is a huge amount of money. But not for these people. For these people, that's peanuts, it's pocket change, it's like bread money, money they keep in their pocket just in case they need to give someone some change. They've got it right there. Anyway, here's the fortune from Barroso's mansion, and now he can't even go to that mansion anymore, right? Oh man, and if the Magnitsky Act comes into play, my friend, he's done for, right? With the Magnitsky Act, any property or asset in the United States is immediately seized by the American government, right? And on top of that, there's even more here. Look, Renato Breira, CFP here. Yeah, the guy has 20 years in the financial market. Then he sent this one. Look, people are shocked that a minister has a $22 million apartment in Miami. Imagine finding out there's a minister with over $500 million in land, horses and cattle under his niece's name. Oh man, I wouldn't rule it out. And again, it's the same story. But if it's the minister I'm thinking of, the story is even more complicated. I don't know. People are saying, I'm not saying anything. It's people here on the internet who are saying it, okay? That it would be, he's talking about Gilmar Mendes. That Gilmar Mendes supposedly has all that under his niece's name. I don't know if that's true. Gilmar Mendes has brothers, and his brothers have daughters, so maybe there's a niece who has some assets in her name. I don't know. I have no information at all. But why do I say that Gilmar Mendes is a complicated case in this story? Because Barroso, when he became a Supreme Court justice, already had an established career. So he can turn around and say, no, because I already had a well-known law firm, and so on. Gilmar Mendes, on the other hand, was in politics his whole career. He was nominated by Fernando Henrique Cardoso. He was the Attorney General of the Union. He was appointed as Attorney General of the Union by Fernando Henrique Cardoso. Then he was nominated to the Supreme Court. In other words, he did have a law firm, but it was never a particularly prominent one. Gilmar Mendes' entire life has been in politics. And so if the guy managed to amass all that money in politics, there must be something fishy going on, right? Yeah. Now, they're saying here that there's supposedly a company called GMF Agropecuaria, which is registered in his niece's name. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if it's actually Gilmar Mendes in this case. But that there are probably Supreme Court justices who have a niece with, things registered in her name and all that. I wouldn't rule that out. That kind of thing is very common over there. People know that Their own name draws a lot of attention, so they put everything in the name of a relative, someone they trust, and so on. I don't rule out that possibility. What's funny is seeing people defending this here, right? At least the minister was a renowned lawyer before becoming a minister. Wait a minute, which minister are you talking about? Which minister are you saying was a renowned lawyer before becoming a minister? Because Guilmar Mendes he was always a public servant, right? Now they're talking here about the Bolsonaro family's case with 51 properties and all that, even though this case is just absurd. You know that, right? Because it's Bolsonaro's extended family. They included second cousins, uncles, people completely distant from Bolsonaro, just to say there were 51 properties and all that. At no point was it about cash. There was never this thing about cash. The deeds mentioned legal tender, right? Man, it's amazing how these people manipulate things, isn't it? And here the guy didn't say anything. He just said, look, there's a minister with over a billion in land, horses, and cattle in his niece's name. People got upset, man. People know who it is. I don't know who it is, though. They're saying here that it's Guilmar Mendes. I don't know if it is. Thank you for watching the video until the end. Besides liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel, consider becoming a sponsor with contributions starting at just 199 reais. Click the Become a Member button below to learn about the conditions and benefits of sponsoring the channel. For more information about our project, visit our websites shown on the screen.